our topic for today. My name is Joe O'Donnell. I am the Senior Technical Engineer at Terrapin Technology and instructor. And joining me is the fabulous Betty Nelson.
Hi guys, great to see you. Probably already know this, but I'm the Practice Support Coordinator at Terrapin, and that generally means I'm using my 41 years experience working with law firms and technology to hopefully help you make better choices at your office.
And we've got quite the subject today. Even Betty and I got into some very interesting discussions when it came to talking about emails, which everybody is inundated with emails. So let's jump right in it. We got a lot of information to cover today. I'll go ahead and turn off my video to spare you any distractions from that point. But let's go ahead and get started. Betty, you found an interesting thing, and we've talked about this before with this slide.
This slide, yes, this slide. I'll never forget when I first saw this recommendation by Microsoft, and I've pulled out the text that really always got me, and Joe finds it so humorous too. The bottom line, they recommend you not have any more than 2,500 to 5,000 messages in any of your critical path folders. That means inbox, sent items, contacts, and it's like, what? Calendar?
Can you hear the laughter?
I don't know in our modern world. Anyone who has fewer items than what they're recommending, and I know a lot of people who have 100,000 items in a folder, but it's still true. Even though this article was written in 2005, believe it or not, one of the number one things they look for when we're looking at Outlook profile corruption is how many items you have in these primary folders.
That's right. Contact Microsoft support is one of the things they look for right now.
Yep.
So it's interesting you say that because we've talked about this before and we always kind of laugh at it, but it's kind of a truth or dare type of moment. It's, 2,000 items, really? I mean, after which you're going to start to have performance issues. Duh. We've all seen that. We've got the spinning wheel of death when we've been in a folder in Microsoft Outlook and we're trying to make it look for something for a piece of email that we saved back in 1990 something.
Right.
And, the whole issue of all of this kind of dates back to the beginning when email was first dreamed up, not to give you too much of a history lesson here, but it was designed to work much like a phone as a way to communicate, not really to store and archive data. And the problem is that things have evolved as we've developed new workflows and newer technology and communicated more, is that this became as a storage medium, which it was never really designed for. And so thus the journey of, our inbox and evolving the practice to preserve our communication, which we'll talk a little bit about further down in our discussion today. So what do we do?
We added this slide, or I added this slide because I was shocked at how different Joe and I approach the idea of managing our inboxes or our mailbox. And we both are really quite proficient at it, and we both take it seriously. And I think we're both very organized, but it was just so interesting at how different we go about it. So today you're going to get to hear all of that.
It's so true. Betty does a couple of things I really had just not thought of. And we're going to go over those. But I think our first thing that we're going to talk about is something that made Betty a wee bit uncomfortable, right?
Oh, I think it's way more than a wee bit uncomfortable. That's because, go to the next slide.
Yeah, here it is.
You want me to do what?
Right. Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. All I'm asking you to do is, just maybe delete some things, try something new.
Try new things. That didn't sound too scary.
It's some of the ideas we talked about. Yeah, we bounced around to different things. Betty had new things. I had some new things that I had done that she had not done. What it really meant for both of us is kind of stepping out of our box a little bit, our comfort zone.
Yeah, and that's where I was reluctant to agree with you. at the
Yeah, you
next
could
slide.
sense it. I can hear it in your voice right now.
Yeah, go ahead and advance the slide.
So yeah,
Um,
we just want to get out of that. This was a great
See, I
slide that Betty
like
had.
I like that half circle. I'm really comfortable right there, and Joe wants me to try to do some new things, and I wonder if it'll make you guys feel uncomfortable as well. Why are you asking us to step out of our comfort zone, Joe?
Well, that's very interesting you say that because it made me think of you mentioned the word magic here, and it reminds me of one time my friend and I were on the subway in New York City, and he just leans over to me and says, "You know, they say the lights are bright on Broadway, and you know why?" And then some random stranger goes, "And there's magic in the air." Totally freaked me out because it's just my first New York moment like that. But really, this is where the magic really happens.
Okay. I'm willing to listen. I hope everybody else is too.
So let's go ahead and jump into some of these things. And really, I would say it's as simple as maybe using another communication method. Oh! I felt the air suck out of the room when I said that. You know, a lot of the communication that essentially had gone back and forth with email, and we noticed this as a company as well, was, hey, where is that? What's this? It wasn't email type of messages that you needed to file. It was a type of email that you kind of responded to, and then you had to delete or get rid of it at some point, but you just ran out of time and it just kind of accumulated. And we were just looking for an alternate way to communicate that doesn't require me or you to organize it. It's a
Right.
situation where you don't need that paper trail.
Right. And it sounds so simple. And I know you're right because at Terrapin we do use Slack. And Slack has been wonderful. And it is so nice to be able to ask a question, get a quick response, get a file you need to download without wading through all of the messages in my Outlook mailbox. But I am pretty addicted to my paper trail. I think as a former legal secretary, I used to have a handwritten CYA file. I think those of us that past a certain age can figure out that acronym. And I always wanted to be able to say, but you asked me to do this, and I did it on this date, and I spoke with this person. And I use Outlook in that way. So I'm now going to open up my mind and try to realize, yes, in certain circumstances that's appropriate. But in other circumstances, I am going to try to pick up the phone or do it, have a chat in Microsoft Teams or Slack. So
Right?
you won me
What?
over.
Pick up the phone. Yeah, we may have forgotten about that option, right? In this Zoom, Microsoft Teams, GoToMeeting age that we're in, it
Yeah.
kind of comes down to that. I was joking with Betty because we reminisce about all kinds of old stuff like this. But remember the songwriter Bill Withers, and for all of those of you who lived in the awesome '80s, Club Nouveau, just call me. And so, hey, just pick up the phone and call somebody for a quick conversation. It won't be 1980s calling. It'll actually be a conversation. This is something that a lot of us have forgotten about just due to, email and electronic communication.
It's
So, we
true.
kind of laugh at it.
We do, and I am guilty as charged. I do not like talking on the phone, even for business reasons. And I'm going to blame that on being a legal secretary for so many years, being on the phone all day. But there are so many quick and easy ways to reach out and communicate verbally. There's the ability to make a phone call in both Teams and Slack. And Joe, we do it frequently, and it saves a ton of time. And anytime you're really struggling drafting that email, pick up the phone. It's going to be easier to place a call and maybe send a summary email once
Real
you're
quick
done.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about what's the big elephant, or what we should say, the big, huge list of things sitting on our desk, or in this
Yes.
case, our inbox.
Mailbox. Yeah.
So one of my techniques for getting organized is to think of my inbox, and I've used this analogy in classes I've taught with Microsoft Outlook, like my mailbox I have at home. When I receive mail from my mailbox at home, after I read the mail, I don't stuff it back in the mailbox. I do something with it. I either make some type of action item out of it. I do something, or maybe it's something I need to record or keep and file, so I do that. Or maybe after I read it, I'm done with it and I can just trash it. I don't need it anymore.
Right.
Essentially, it's just a delivery method. That's how I look at it. So I go through my mail and I will do those things, do an action, save it if it's important to keep it, or heaven forbid I trash it and delete it.
It's okay to do, Joe. It's okay to
Yeah.
do. And later, I'm going to teach you one of my favorite tricks that would be an action item. But Joe has some other ideas too. Joe has embraced a new feature in Outlook that, again, I'm reluctant to embrace. So I'm going to let Joe tell me how he came to enjoy using the focused and other inbox.
Yeah, so this was interesting because the way this conversation came up is Betty's like, I know all these tools, but I'll tell you one thing I hate. And of course, she said focused inbox. And then, of course, I went, well, that's exactly what I was going to say that I love. And she's like, what?
Wow.
That was it. Focused inbox. So this is something I've really liked getting used to. And I do say that, getting used to, because it took time. So I don't get a lot of junk mail because we have a good spam filter. But I do have things that I get that are maybe they're alerts, notes from vendors, they are improvements to software, they are notifications of some sort of new features and maybe new equipment or whatever it might be. But it's not critical priority type of emails. It's not from a particular person that needs an action. So for those type of emails, I flag them as the other emails. Everything else that comes from a real person that might be what I would flag as a priority that needs me to act on something is part of the focused inbox, and I have it go there. So that means focused, those are my action items. And then when I have time, I'll go into other and I'll look through, hey, here's a news item. Hey, here's an update on this. Here's this type of those type of things that aren't priority type of things. And it helps reduce the clutter. And that's what's really, really helped me to
I have a
focused.
question. How much time investment do you need to make to get the focused and other inboxes to work the way you want them to?
That's a great question. It does take a little training, but fortunately, we're using Office 365 for our emails. So there's a lot of, let's just call it artificial intelligence behind the scenes. It kind of dictates where these are, where they're coming from based on the email address and the content. So not as much as you would think. If something does get put into the other that belongs in focus or vice versa, all it takes is a right click and you tell it to move it to the other or to the focused inbox, and it will remember it from that point forward.
That's
so
great.
it doesn't take a whole lot, not a whole lot.
That's awesome.
I was pretty surprised.
Here's another thing Joe likes that I hate. Conversation view.
Yes, the conversation view. Now, the funny thing about conversation view, and we discussed about this too, this has been on our mobile phones like forever. But the minute we put it on the desktop, everybody was like, oh, hands up in the air. Who cares about this? But it's really helpful. Now, it's not perfect because it organizes things when it says conversation, AKA by subject, just like it does in our mobile phones. And so that way everything's grouped together. Now, the thing I like about this, not that it just groups things by conversation for your email you receive, but also your sent items. Now that's cool because I don't have to go to my sent items. I can just expand the conversation and it'll show things I've received, and then it'll show the sent item that I used to reply to that all in the timeline of the conversation.
I have to say now that's intriguing because I do think for most of us, we live in, we're forward facing with our inbox. We're looking at what we're receiving. I consider sent items for some people I've worked with, it's like a wasteland. They never think to go in there at all. So I do agree that the conversation view would be handy for that. Is this something I can turn on and off at will, or does it take a long time for it to figure out which pieces of the puzzle belong together?
No, it's almost instantaneous. And you
Wow.
see on the little screenshot you have there and how you can turn it on.
Yes.
The beauty is you can turn this on for individual folders. So you can do it just for your inbox or a specific folder, or you can tell it to enable it for everything. So you have a lot of flexibility. And once you turn it on, it's almost instantaneous. There's no
That's great.
waiting for it to happen, which is nice.
Good to know. Now, here's another, talking about artificial information, AI. At first, these creeped me out because I felt like the Cortana Summary emails were an invasion of my privacy. This person, Cortana, is telling me, oh, or asking me. It's like a mother asking their child if they really clean their room. It's like, you said you were going to get back to this person. Did you? But
Right.
Joe and I agree on this one. It is useful, especially if you did have a day where you weren't able to keep up with all your tasks. It's a great little, checklist, so to speak.
It
And
really is.
you can say that done later,
Yeah,
trash it,
I
etc.
absolutely agree.
Yeah.
I have to say, I actually look forward to seeing this email first thing in the morning. And this is another feature that grew on me because for the longest time, I was just deleting it. I wasn't looking at it at
Ditto.
all.
Yeah.
And then one day I just looked at it and then I kept looking at it more and more. And then I actually come to rely on it because for me, it's like, it's sort of like when you, I don't know if you've, for some of you that work in law firms, you have these metadata filters that when you send an email out, it'll do a check to see if there's anything in the documents you're sending out that's confidential and everything. This is sort of like my last little screening of, hey, check these things to make sure you didn't miss anything. Because for me, I used to get into a lot of trouble because I got so much email that I would miss things.
Hmm.
By the time I tried to work through it, so much more was coming in that what I wanted to get to was so far down on my list of emails that I'd forgotten about it. And
Right.
this was a great way of saying, ooh, I forgot to follow up on that. And it'll
Well,
keep
or
coming up.
if you're like Betty, who prides herself in being super organized, I look at it like words of affirmation. I go, yes, done, done, done.
Absolutely.
But you're right.
S-
Every now and then I go, oh no, I
Yeah.
totally forgot. So it's been a useful tool, no doubt about it.
Very, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that for the Microsoft 365 users out there in our audience that are using this. It's really, really good. And it ties into, by the way, the built-in to-do list that's part of Office 365. So the things you see there, done, later, not a task, and so forth, it is keeping track of those in your to-do list. So other than the email message you get with the summary view, it ties in with a to-do list as part of 365 as well that you can fall back on as well. But now
That's
that's not all.
awesome.
Betty's got a cool one here. And we find this one very, very helpful when we do our
Yeah.
classes in Microsoft Outlook.
I use this repeatedly. I use it every day, and especially in the type of work I'm in, and the fact that I live on the East Coast, but I work for a business on the West Coast. I love to drag an email with all the details of what I need to do, or if it's an appointment with the directions of where I need to go. I drag the email and drop it on my calendar. And then when you go to the next screen, you'll see it starts a calendar invite or meeting. It starts a meeting or appointment, I guess, in this case. And the body of the email is in the body of the calendar item. So I have all the details I need. So because I live on the East Coast, I like to hop on people's computers and say install software updates before they come into the office. I just drag this email, set it to happen at 6 a.m. California time, bada bing, bada bang. I'm not looking at my notes from yesterday. I've got everything I need right here. And then the image, the screenshot in the forefront is of a task. And I'm not a task person. I don't use tasks in Outlook. I use my calendar in lieu of tasks. But the same thing works. If you were to drag this onto the task icon in Outlook, it would start a new task for you and have all the details available.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one little extra little thing on top of what Betty just shared with you, when you do the drag and drop, if you drag and drop with your right mouse button, it'll give you additional options. So maybe instead of adding the text of the email as body text in the calendar appointment or the task, if you drag and drop with your right mouse button, you'll be given the option to add it as an attachment. So you have the entire whole email as an attachment that you can refer back to, and some other choices that you can use just by using the right mouse button to drag and
That's
drop.
right. It's awesome.
So now that we're talking about the calendar a little bit, let's talk about this next little gem here, and this is with Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, I just thought it's not a whole lot about organizing your mailbox, but it seemed like a good time to remind you now that we've noticed so many of our clients embracing Teams, using Teams. Joe and I have been giving clients and their business associates Teams training. And a lot of people say, but how do I start a Teams meeting? They think you need to do that in Teams. And au contraire, it's really simple. Once
Mm-hmm.
you create a calendar item in Outlook, as soon as you hit that invite button shown in the very top image, as soon as you hit that, a new icon shows up on the toolbar. And you can see that it's Teams meeting. So the minute you invite someone, actually, you just hit invite, but as you invite people, if you click Teams meeting, it will put Microsoft Teams meeting in the location. And then all the details, the link for joining, etc., show up after the invite is sent.
Right. And if you have the audio conferencing with that as well for your Microsoft Teams licensing, it will include a phone number and the PIN number to dial. You don't have to put anything in there. It does all of that for you.
That's really convenient.
Now, here's another one of Betty's secret weapons right here. I really like this one.
For me, I love this one. Now, this isn't going to work for everyone, but when I was saying that sent items is a bit of a wasteland, I've seen attorneys be searching for messages and they're really organized. They have a folder for every client or matter even. And, their inbox has sometimes so many folders I can't even believe. But you go to their sent items and you could see they're not filing their sent items in the same folders. They're really just dragging their received email that was sent to them. So I like to go into this feature. You just go Outlook, Options, Mail, and then scroll down to the Save Messages area of options. And I put a check in the box when replying to a message that is not in the inbox. And my computer just froze. Hold on, I'm coming back. Save the message in the same folder that, save the reply in the same folder the message is in. That eliminates me having to do a ton of filing. So I drag my message to the appropriate folder, then I reply. And I know my reply email will be filed appropriately in that folder.
Now, that sounds really, really cool. But here's a question for you. What if I also want to be able to search my sent items for something quickly without a lot of thought?
Yeah, you can't have both. You have to choose. You have to choose.
Yes.
For me, I would rather have the items go right into the folder when I reply. But everyone's different. Some people want to be able to go into their sent items and search anything and everything. So it's definitely a personal choice.
It is. It is. So you have something that will kind of fit both. Obviously, you can't have both, but you can choose which way you want to organize things and be able to do it that way. Now, that kind of takes us into a little bit more on email. And this is a little bit of a dirty word when it comes to email. It's email policies. Oh,
boy, is that a dirty word.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about this.
We talk about it, but nobody else wants to.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
I have seen firms that have every duck in a row organized. They've thought of everything. Their, employee handbook is up to date, but an email policy? No one wants to tackle that. And I feel it's such an important decision. And there's so much more than we can go into in a 30-minute webinar. But in terms of litigation and legal holds and even retention policies as it comes to client files in a law firm, it really makes sense to have a policy.
It really does. And there are things that you can, as from an IT department, you can't really govern those things, but you can help use the controls that you have in most of these services to help implement whatever workflow or retention policies that the firm or your company wants to put into practice. But the
Right.
key part of that is you've got to sit down and work all that out.
You
The
do.
technology is just not going to do it by itself.
No, it won't do it on its own. But I do want to mention the scenario where you have a problem. So, just like we were talking today, Joe and I are both very organized. We take organizing our mailbox seriously, but we do it very differently. So, if you have a user who has deletes messages as they go, and I have seen that, and then you have a user that saves everything from the beginning of time, if you were to have a litigation hold and you didn't have an email policy, you'd have a hard time explaining why one person had responsive emails and another person didn't. So I'm just going to mic drop that one.
Yeah, we'll just put that one out there. That's to give you
Yeah.
something to think about. And as Betty said, that can very easily open up a Pandora's box of email
can.
controversy.
And
But
we
it
have
is
a
worth
few more.
doing.
We're going to go a little long today and I knew that was going to happen. We have a little bit more to cover.
So this was another one, archiving your email, and this kind of comes into case because, well, we just have so much.
Right. And
There's a lot of it there.
I just talked about the delete or save dilemma and how your users work differently. If you have an archiving solution in place that saves everybody's email across the board, not in Outlook, but somewhere else, you're kind of saved.
Yeah.
So I just, that's why archiving can be so important and such a great solution.
It can, and it's not real difficult for an administrator of your services to be able to set up these features so that they can easily be implemented with all the users to be able to archive things, so that you do have the ability to have things longer and to reduce the amount of information that Microsoft Outlook is synchronizing, because that's where we see a lot of problems happen, is with that synchronization that Outlook tries to do.
That's right. So this is what you would see in the admin panel of Microsoft 365, where an administrator could go in and set up these rules about
Right.
archiving, because users can't really, everything will be grayed out for them, and unless the organization has gone ahead and made some decisions and taken some actions.
That's right. Now, the next one here that I really like, and I personally use this, and it's not that difficult to set up in Microsoft 365 or an on-premise Exchange server, is to set up retention policies or rules that can be applied either in whole or in part to just specific folders. So for example, for myself, I have two policies. One is for my deleted items, where anything in my deleted items that's older than 45 days automatically drops off the radar. It gets deleted. And then my sent items has a different policy where it'll keep things for 6 months, and after 6 months, they automatically drop off. Now, some people would cringe at that type of retention policy, but here's what it helps me do. Two things. One, if I put something in deleted items, I really want to delete it because I know that I only have a 45-day buffer. If I need to keep it, then I make sure I put it in a folder with my files. Or for us, we will talk about this later too, we have a document management system. I file it there because it needs to be put into, as part of the records that we
Right.
keep. So it helps me to keep things organized and not rely on Outlook just to keep everything forever and set it and forget it type of thing. I do set it and forget it, but I have to give action to my items.
Right. And
Now-
then now let's look at some of these other solutions where we're working with a vendor. Now at Terrapin, any of our clients that moved from licensed Microsoft Office to the subscription of Microsoft 365, we highly recommend that you have Datto SaaS protection. And you can see in this image that it's available for the Google Suite as well as Office 365.
Yeah.
When we look at the next slide, this gives you an image of what it would look like if someone from Terrapin was asked to restore something from Datto SaaS protection. And Joe, just why don't you explain the options for how long items can be saved?
Yeah, so the beauty of this is that if something does get deleted or hacked, you can go back and recover those things from this backup very, very easily. And the retention can go back quite a ways, so that you can configure that to say I want to be able to go back 3 months, 4 months, or so forth. But again, the beauty is you're not left in the lurch. If something does get deleted that you do need to recover, or if there's some type of malicious intent that deletes things, you're not left in the lurch as well. You have a way of being able to recover those things. And by the way, it's a common misunderstanding that if you have hosted email, that your vendor is backing up your mailboxes. So really, really
Yeah,
important for managing your mailboxes.
absolutely. Another popular solution is Proofpoint, and a lot of our clients have Proofpoint. And I was going to edit this slide, and I forgot. But I just am showing you the portion that applies to email archiving. If you go with the Pro package, it gives you all of these features for email archiving: unlimited storage, configurable retention up to 10 years, and legal hold, and really some awesome search and discovery tools. And so no matter what you're doing in Outlook, Proofpoint has a copy of every message sent and received sitting in a different location in the cloud. And the cost for that on the pro level is $5.33 per user per month, just to give you idea of the cost involved.
Yeah. It's not something that would break the bank. And the differences between these different levels you see here is very, very minuscule. So
Yes,
we typically have go with the Pro because it gives you so much more bang for your buck.
it does.
Now, besides the filtering and the secure email functions and the archiving that this can provide, even for mailboxes that are not 365, this is another service that we see quite often, more in tune towards the on-premise Exchange servers that some of your larger organizations will have. Some small organizations still have on-premises Exchange, and the message archiver came into play because the Exchange server they're using only had so much room. So to offload some of the work from the Exchange server, you would have a message archiver where it would put a little stub or bookmark for the email. And when you click it, it would go to the archiver, retrieve the message, and open it up for you. Other companies used it to be able to journal everything that went in or went out of their company. So you'll still see these in play. This is still a valid option, but more so towards your on-premise solutions than you do with your online services like Microsoft 365. Though Barracuda does work with with 365 and other services, usually most clients will go with the service that Microsoft provides to keep everything under one umbrella. But it can be used, and if you do have one, you can use it in that way, especially if it's still in service and under warranty.
And then on our next slide, we're going to talk about something that many of you have. And if you don't, it's something to really consider.
It is.
Archive your email to your document management system. And whenever I do World Docs training, I remind people to talk to the members of the firm and see what the culture is in their firm. The capabilities are there to either move or copy messages into a client matter. But, you don't want to be the only one doing it if you're on a team of 10 attorneys and secretaries working on a matter and you're the only one saving all your emails. That doesn't really make sense.
Right.
So
And
talk to your
ultimately,
people.
absolutely, because ultimately what it's going to help you do is keep all of your communication in one accessible spot to everybody, which is going to eliminate duplication, eliminate storage and backups, much, much better searching. You're not going to get that spinning wheel of death when you're trying to search your sent items of 80,000 items that you have. There's better security. And for all of our law firms that are listening in, a much easier way to produce documents if there's a legal hold or such. So
That's for sure.
a lot of considerations to kind of up the game when it comes to organizing not just your email, but all of your communication and client documentation or work product.
Yep.
But
And
now,
then we wanted to definitely talk about searching because that's one reason you want to be organized so you can find things. And so many changes have happened with Outlook searching in the last few years that I really wanted us to talk about it because it's no longer searching your mail items, it is searching an index of your mail items. So, Joe, why don't
Mhm.
you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so this is real interesting because the way Microsoft designed this to make the searching go a little bit faster, rather than searching things in real time, Windows, not Microsoft Outlook, will index different things on your computer, including Microsoft Outlook. So when you're doing your searches, you're actually searching the index that Windows has created, which includes files on the computer and files and emails in Microsoft Outlook. And the new bar that they've put in the most current release of Microsoft Outlook was developed and designed to act a lot like how people are using Google and the Bing search. You get a single search line, you enter in what you're looking for, and it will produce results. Now, for those of us that have been doing and using Microsoft Outlook and searching for things for a long time, that seems a little bit of a backward step. And it does seem that way. Main reason is because you don't have the advanced features right up in front of you where you can
Hmm.
choose specifically what you want to do. And Betty and I both agreed on that. It would be nice if there was a way to tell it you want to use the simplified search, or maybe you want to go back to the advanced kind of more choices, advanced searching that it had
Right.
before. But nonetheless, one of the key things that we found to do here was once you do your search, you have more options. Or like Betty shows here, you can choose what's going on even beforehand. But tell them about the indexing status. This is pretty interesting, Betty.
Right. So I get a lot of calls from people saying, my searches are not working in Outlook. I know that I sent this email. I know there's an email from this person, something like that. And I say, let's check your indexing status. So if you're getting so much email, or maybe you're a support staff person and you have your, say, like 3 attorneys' email attached to your mailbox, Windows has to index all those emails. So I tell people, check your indexing status. If you see, like in that little indexing status screenshot at the bottom, where there are, 36,000 emails that aren't indexed, that means those you have 36,845 items that aren't going to be
They're not going to
responsive
show
in your
up.
search. They're not going to
Yeah,
show up. So when people add somebody else's mailbox, when you have a situation that has this huge influx of items coming in, I really recommend that you keep Outlook running at night when you're not in the office and lock your computer and let this indexing get done during non-business hours, because it's hard during the day. It's trying to index while you're sending and receiving new items. It's really nice to let it run in the evening,
it is.
when it's not being interrupted.
And many a times Windows will scale down the indexing process if your computer's busy doing other things, which just makes it take longer. So more reason to, like Betty said, to keep it running overnight and let it do its indexing if you did have a large influx of things coming in.
Yep.
So I
Oh,
love this one.
I threw this one in because I had this great firm administrator that used to tell us this all the time. Remember that the E in email stands for evidence. And I thought it was a great time to remind everyone anything you put in an email can be produced. So think twice when you're sending those emails. Okay, that's the end of my public service announcement about that.
Very good. Well, let's head into our summary and wrap things up. And we talked about a lot of different things, but I think the biggest thing that Betty and I found in talking to each other was just being open-minded to some of the things that are new and give them a try. Don't initially just dismiss them. Try to take advantage of the technology.
Yep.
And then the actionable items, is it something that I can do with, handle it and then get rid of it? Does it need to be filed because it's some type of record? Or once I'm done with it, can I delete it? Think of what you want to do. And then
And
the other forms of communication, right, Betty?
yeah, you're convincing me. I'm already doing it, and I didn't even think of it this way. But now that I am thinking of it consciously, I am going to try to use other forms of communication when I don't need a paper trail. It's a great solution. And then just being open to this new technology that we showed you today, the conversation view, the focused and other inbox.
Hmm. Try the different policies that are available. Obviously, that would take some discussions with the administration of your company. Try implementing it, or even implementing and utilizing a document management system to up your game, to really organize and strengthen the ability to find information without having information overload. And then our last one, Betty, we always talk
Of
about this
course.
one.
Yeah. Training, even a 30-minute class for, for support staff and a separate one for attorneys or whatever type of business you're in. We can customize it so that it actually is saying something that they can relate to and they're interested in, and just help them adopt some of these tools. It is scary when you're not being encouraged to use them or you don't know how to use them. So that's what we really recommend.
So that's our discussion on wrangling emails. We hope that you've learned a few things, opened your mind to a few things. But as always, if you have any questions, we would love to hear from you. Feel free to drop Eddie and I a message, or you could send something to info@terrapintechnology.com. We appreciate you taking the time to spend this a little more than a half an hour today
Yep.
on this very important topic.
And we will be back on May 12th. And next month, we're going to be discussing managing devices and data out of the office.
Yes, big topic coming up. Thank you all for your time. We look forward to seeing you for our next Webinar Wednesday.